Started. Hello, welcome to our session. Thank you for coming. I know there's many exciting sessions happening right now, so thank you for choosing ours. We hope that it will be worth your time. I am Lisa Campbell, and I am joined by my colleagues Hannah Whitaker, Brittany Kester, and Daniela Suzarte, and we are from the University of Florida Libraries. I would say we're a team of accessibility enthusiasts, and we are here to share with you our approach to web accessibility. And we are joined by Allison Boble and Emily Glenn, who will follow us with their experience navigating the web accessibility. So we'll go first and then we'll turn it over. Okay, so to put it into context, in the U.S., there is a new guidelines that Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.1, AA standards must be met by April 24th, 2026. And this is called Title II. And so this is an approaching deadline that we have been working toward over the past couple of years. The WCAG defines how to make web content more accessible to people with disabilities. So it's important to remember that accessibility involves a wide range of disabilities. Sometimes with digital accessibility, we think of our users who are blind or deaf, but actually it can include visual, auditory, physical, speech, cognitive language learning, and neurological disabilities. And the reason that this work is so important to us is because we know that our learners need to have equitable access to information so we can support their learning and research. So this is really critical work that should have been happening all along, but now we have a requirement that is moving us towards this goal. And WCAG 2.1 is developed through the W3C process in cooperation with individuals and organizations around the world. So it is a global initiative. There are other similar acts that are happening across the globe. But today we're focusing on the Title II guidelines. Okay, and the framework that they use and that we use to think about accessibility is called POUR. It's an acronym. First, the content needs to be perceivable. So that means that they can perceive the content. So whether that's to see it or hear it, an example would be alternative text. So if a user cannot see the image, the alternative text will allow them to perceive what the image is. They also need to be operable, so users need to be able to navigate the interface. They may have to use a keyboard instead of a mouse, so the ability to tab through the page is really important so that they can operate with the content. Understandable is another really important framework. We need to make sure that our users can not only see the content, but that it can make sense to them. So there's strategies like plain language, using simple language that is easily understood versus like complex language or jargon. And then finally, we need our content to be robust, and that means it needs to work with current and future technologies. So for example, with screen readers or different browsers, and this is something that we'll continually work toward as technologies advance. Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I got it, don't worry. So at the University of Florida, because of our high research output, quantity of publications, and extensive doctoral programs, we are an R1 or Research 1 university. We have over 50,000 students, 32,000 employees, 4.1 million visitors per year, and 5.5 million print volumes, as well as 4 million ebooks. So because of the quantity and quality of our materials and users, it is imperative to be discoverable and accessible. So these are different accessibility services and features at our university. So the first one is the Disability Resource Center, which we colloquially call the DRC. There is 7,500 registered students, and the DRC provides services that help students with accommodations, resources, and assistive technologies. We also have academic technology, UFIT. So they provide resources for digital accessibility, self-paced courses on accessibility, as well as accessible tools and services. Then we have the Center for Instructional Technology and Training, which we also call the CITT. They provide accessibility training and support for instructional design. We have a Greater Accessible at UF page as well, and they provide physical and digital accessibility support for UF students, employees, and visitors. We also have accessibility best practices library guides. So like many other institutions, we've made accessible best practices library guides, aka LibGuides. We also have various committees and working groups. Some of the highlights are the University Accessibility Committee of Practice that meets monthly, and our Library Accessibility Advisory Committee that I am co-chair along with Matthew Daly, who is also our webmaster. And real quick, sorry for missing this. This is one of our lovely library buildings. This is actually the first library building, and last year we celebrated our centennial. This photograph here is a stock image that we have on our UF websites, and it is a disabled student having a conversation. That actually, he is a part of the DRC. He got hired there recently. And the last, so this last slide here. So Library Accessibility Services webpage. So pivoting to the focus of our project, the Library Accessibility's webpage. So since this page is in many ways the landing page for accessibility info at the libraries, we found it critical to ensure this page is accessible. The image here also is at Smathers Library, which is our oldest library that celebrated their centennial. This is the grand reading room, and it shows students accessing material using laptops. So we have our Library Accessibility's webpage. It details accessible services at the George E. Smathers Libraries, a list of physical and digital services at different branches. And so our project is we conducted an automated and manual audit of the webpage and tested with a screen reader. We identified barriers to access, which we will later talk about, and then we collaborated with our webmaster to make revisions.
Okay, so to work to make this webpage more accessible, the first thing that we did was run an automated audit using the Wave tool. This is a free tool that you can use online. This is a screenshot of what it looks like. It will appear like this with your web page that you're auditing, and then a column next to it that shows the results of the automated audit. And so it will have red alerts if there's something that needs to be addressed right away. It will have yellow warnings of things that you might, it's encouraging you to fix, and then green things that are like, yay, you did a good job. And so this is what we used for our automated audit, which we found out yesterday in an amazing accessibility presentation. Both of you guys are here. Thank you for coming. That the automated audits only pick up, or they only catch about 60 to 70% of errors. And so we knew we also wanted to conduct a manual audit as well. But for the automated audit, and I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly so that you know kind of the things that it catches. So one of the big things is alternative text, which Lisa already mentioned. So that's making sure that in the background of the images that you have, so like even in this PowerPoint, this image, we have alternative text for it so that the person using a screen reader is able to know the context of the image and the information you're trying to relay based on that image. So having alternative text is really important. Additionally, color contrast is really important. And actually at the end of the slides, we have a bunch of resources. And one of them is a color contrast checker that is really good. It helps you make sure that the contrast that you're using meets the needs for those that have color blindness or that are visually impaired. So things like using the white font on the dark blue background, or using a black or gray font on a white background. So the contrast is enough so that it's readable. And then quite a lot of things that are in the background in the code are really important as well. So form labels, which are things like letting a student or a screen reader user know that you have bullet points or a list or a drop-down menu, things like that, so that as the screen reader is reading, it will say, coming next is a search box. And so then they'll be able to know that that's where they can put in something to search. Or a button, to have a form label on your button. And then heading labels is also in the background. So this is making sure to know, like, this is your title. And so instead of just making your title bigger or bolder, you actually have it in the code of the website as a header. So then the screen reader can read it as a header, and then a subheader, and then a level 3 and a level 4. And so that helps with also these are a little bit later, but the order and the structure, so that if somebody is using keyboard access, they can jump from heading to heading without reading or having the screen reader read things they didn't need. And then active links or descriptive links. This is, for example, a lot of people, and I am a person that used to do this, would just put click here, and it'd be a link, and it would just be like you would click on this link, or you would write visit this, and then you'd put the entire URL. And so and then the screen reader would read out that whole URL, and it would usually throw people off. And so the best practice is to actually say where the link is going to go. So instead of saying click here to visit our accessibility webpage, you could just say accessibility webpage and have it be an active link, and then it would go to the accessibility page. And then I mentioned order and structure, so this is making sure that your website makes sense in the navigation, and that all of that is reflected in the code in the background. And if you're using something like we use WordPress, all of it is actually really easy to do. And so there's templates, and like the boxes are fairly easy to use if you're able to use something like that. And then text size, this one's pretty straightforward, making sure the text is a size that people can read. So like we wouldn't have made this PowerPoint in an 11 size font, because then you guys wouldn't have been able to read it in the audience. So what we found actually at the end of this was that we had quite a few things to change. We were missing some headings, we were missing quite a few form labels, we were missing some alternative text on like hidden things like our icons for Facebook and Instagram. And so the automated audit from Wave was really helpful as the initial first step to conquer a lot of these issues that we were having. But then, as I mentioned, we wanted to do a manual audit as well. So we used the Easy Check. And again, I think these slides are up so you can click on these links. They're active links. This is an example of an active link, yay. And so many of these are the same. So it's checking similar things, but there are a few additional ones with like video, making sure that all the videos are captioned, making sure that there's not like blinking or like really quick moving graphics. And then also things like plain language, which Lisa also mentioned earlier. So that was actually the biggest thing we changed on this part of the audit, was the amount of text that was on the page. It was just too much. We were trying to give too many details. There was a lot of superfluous language. And so we actually utilized this manual audit to really help focus in on the things that the students really needed to know about the accessibility services at the university. So the biggest change that we made after this part of the audit was to get rid of quite a lot of extra. And I think now it actually reads really nicely. It's not an overwhelming page. And so I think it was successful in the end, which this also, one of the other reasons why we changed a lot of the text was because we also did a screen reader test. I don't know if any of you have ever used a screen reader before. The one we used was a free version of the NVDA screen reader. There was too much text on the page. That was one of the things that we learned. It was too much text, and the screen reader just never stopped. It was going. But we found out that it also helped us make sure that our information was organized well, that we were able to use the keyboard navigations, because that's a big part of the screen reader, is making sure that as you're moving through the page, the navigation makes sense. And then also ensuring that all of our alternative text was accurate for the screen reader. So we did those 3 on this single page. And so now I will pass it off to Hannah, who will talk about the lessons we learned.
Thank you. Okay, so overall, in completing this project, we really learned that this work is complicated, it's messy, and it's never done. As best practices and standards are continually being updated, we will continue this work and continue to update the Accessibility Services webpage as well as the library website itself. As Brittany mentioned, testing it with a screen reader was a major learning curve and encouraged us to really cut down on the content of the webpage. There were just way too many words. It was overwhelming and overstimulating. We learned that web accessibility really needs to be dynamic to ensure that different people with different types of disabilities can access the web page equitably. And it's really critical to make connections across your institution, your organization, your community. We worked very closely with Matthew Daly, who works in the library IT and is co-chair along with Daniela of our accessibility services community. He was instrumental in helping us make edits to the web page, and we also collaborate with the DRC and the CITT at UF, so it's just really important to make those connections, working relationships. And also, this work is huge. It's overwhelming. It's stressful, but small changes are better than no change. So if you can just do what you can with what you have, that is major. So we encourage you to just get started however you can. Moving forward, so currently right now at the UF Libraries, we are working on auditing the rest of the library's webpage. So we talked about doing the accessibility services page, but we're going to do the entire website. And also all of the librarians are currently updating and remediating their own LibGuides. We have approximately 540 library guides across the UF libraries. And so those are all being remediated by the owners of the guides. In the future, Daniela, Brittany, Lisa, and I would really like to hire a student who uses a screen reader to test our accessibility services webpage. So we're planning on applying for some grants and doing that because we recognize that user testing is really the most important way to test and make updates. We'd like to acknowledge and thank our deans, Patrick Reeks, Valerie Minson, and Ben Walker, for supporting us and helping send us to Thailand, and a huge, huge thank you to Matthew Daly for his work in helping us update the webpage. So that's it for us, and then we'd like to turn it over to Allison and Emily at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Thank you so much.
So one of the things that Hannah just said is that accessibility work is overwhelming. So we're going to talk a little bit from a slightly different standpoint. I am not an accessibility expert. Emily is not as well. We are engaged in the work at a higher level. And so we're going to sort of talk about how do you deal with something, in our case in the U.S., this mandate to make things accessible. How do you do that when it is incredibly overwhelming? As you can see, University of Nebraska Medical Center is much smaller than Florida. We have fewer people, fewer students. We only have 26 folks in the library, so we have a lot of work to do and not a lot of people to do the work. But we are a proud bunch, which we'll talk about. So one of the things about Nebraska, if you're not familiar with it, is it's an agricultural state. Although most of the population is in the East Coast, or the eastern part of the state, it's a big geography. There's a lot of space there. And the university takes pride in the fact that we have this Nebraska sort of self-sufficient, can-do attitude. And that, it's kind of cheesy, but it actually really talks about our work. Our work really is reflected in that. We'll make it happen. So the last 5, maybe 3 to 5 years, we've had some challenges. Some of these are going to be very familiar to all of us. COVID obviously changed teaching and learning, how we collaborate as colleagues, how do we do the work when we're not in the space. We went through a complete renovation in 2019 and came back during COVID, but yet we had to sort of unpack the library, get it all up and running, and then go back home to work because we were still in COVID. We had to do a lot of that work ourselves. We didn't do the construction ourselves, but we had to make the space active and available for students or whoever wanted to use it without extra help, because the campus was locked down. We also, we share a IT department with the hospital system that we're partnered with, and they had a cyber attack in September 2020. Because we share an IT, it brought down the academic side, all of our systems. So IT's focus was getting those systems back up, increasing the security. So when we were going through, for instance, a migration of our platform during 2020, and we changed our authentication during 2020, we needed IT's help, but they didn't have a lot of bandwidth to help us. So we had to do a lot of the work ourselves, to the point where we would get to the point where we now needed IT, but we had done all the pre-work. Whereas maybe a couple years earlier, we would have brought IT in earlier to help us figure out what we needed to know and how to do the work. We started doing it ourselves. So when we went to IT, we're like, this is what we need from you. It was rocky to do that, but it has gotten us to the point where IT is now recognizing that when we come to them, we know what we're talking about. We don't need our hand held as much. But part of that was we had to do it. We did it. Budget challenges, I think everyone can relate to that. How do we navigate that? Again, every year, we never know potentially what's going to happen. Recently, it's actually hot off the presses. We've gone through kind of a merger. It's a quasi-merger. And it's really on paper. It's accreditation. It's not part of this presentation, but we have to navigate how does that change our work? Does it change our work? How does it change our identity? Again, another challenge that we're grappling with. But all of these challenges have made us a much more agile library. So when we have something like this accessibility mandate, we're ready. Our team doesn't freak out, or we have managed to wrangle our freak out in ways that Emily will talk about. So it keeps us focused on that big picture. So when it comes to accessibility, it's just one more, I'm going to say opportunity and not a challenge, that we, as this very small team, can come together and work through that.
Okay. All right, so as I've heard in a couple other sessions, there are a lot of opportunities with the issues we're dealing with to reflect on how our teams work together and how we can prepare for change together. And really where I'm going to take this part of the conversation for us at University of Nebraska Medical Center is about some of our change management practice. And when we get to change management, it's not so much the management when we're in the change, but it's the preparation for the change, the readiness, the acknowledgement of our campus culture, and some of the kind of questions, comments, concerns that our own team has. The people who are going to do the work need to be adequately prepared to do it, and we need to know that they feel supported in coming along with us on this journey. As the dean of the library and as the manager of this team of people who's going to be doing the work, I had the responsibility with other folks on my team, like Allison, to make sure that we were ready to go together. And so some of the things that we use to approach a change management process when dealing with new accessibility guidelines with a short deadline and a lot of work to be done is thinking about all of these things here. So talking with people, understanding kind of who our partners were and what are the opportunities at the very beginning to work together. What are the actual goals of this work? And that has been, I think, for us an interesting conversation, because where our Florida colleagues describe working through a web page and making this, function in a certain way, we're also, as a smaller library, looking at the breadth of our resources. So we have the things that we loan to students, the things that are in print, other things that appear in our exhibit space. And so it's not just books, not just web pages that we're looking at, but we want to get a handle on how we're approaching this diversity of material. Some of our some of our planning and readiness too also focused on a timeline. What's realistic? What's expected? What are other libraries looking to kind of figure out as we step forward? We were taking in a lot of information to find out what were the next best good steps. So in getting through kind of the readiness, we planned for several of these things, and I'm grateful that our team has the collaboration to be able to know that we're planning for maybe steps 1 and 2, but we're going to have to get through steps 6, 7, and 8 all the way to the end together. We know we're going to start on this journey, and we have the trust to go there. So we did a lot of communication internally. We did some reflection to figure out what were the best roles for people that are going to be leading smaller teams, and then are really excited for some of the first milestones. In some ways, it feels like at this point, we're a couple months away from April, that we're late and moving fast and behind, but all of our preparation work allows us to move quickly when we reach this time. Yes, okay. Starting by ourselves, as Allison mentioned, we had a mandate. We had a kind of, you're going to be all in it yourself to lead this as a library department at our university. Every unit on campus, all of the colleges, all of the academic service units, the business office, everybody is dealing with kind of the accessibility issues. And so from the library side, we looked to our campus to understand what they wanted us to do. They weren't going to tell us anything. They wanted us to tell them what we were going to do, but also they didn't want to know what we were going to do. They just assumed that we were going to do the thing. And so this was an opportunity, I think, as a leader to say, yep, we don't know exactly what this is going to look like when it's completed. We're going to do our best to make sure we meet this mandate, and we're going to do these things. We're staying connected to our campus to understand kind of the breadth of resources and some of the other challenges folks are having in other units to see how we can support them. And we found a lot of good synergy there along the way. So what we did was appointed a library team to check out our library priorities. One of our associate deans is leading that group to make sure that we've all got the right information. Our library IT committee is only 3 people with 1 IT person. So when Allison talked about the IT relationship, that really is like from the library team. They're representing all of the things that we need to do as a library for all of our users and all of our resources. And it's a lot to communicate just to 1 IT person. So I think if you can also read, IT is not solving this problem for us at all. What we did also is hire a short-term temporary part-time person. They are a recent graduate from library school and have a lot of technical skills, so they're able to jump right in and help us convert a lot of materials. Campus training provided mostly how to remediate PDFs. For us as a library, that doesn't work with all of the ways that our resources move and all of the different kinds of web platforms that we have for the various resources in the library. However, we did use the expertise of several partners. Our campus accessibility team, they're terrific. We've had conversations with them, and while it didn't yield anything for Title II compliance, we did learn how we could work with them to support buying textbooks that support accessibility needs ongoing for students. The Title II advisory group on campus was made up of representatives from different units doing the work in their own unit. And this is more information sharing and kind of questions, not really giving us advice on how we should do what we should do in the library. We have a lot of instruction materials that we create for courses. Just for reference, I think you had 540 LibGuides. I think we have about 54, so maybe 10% of that. A lot smaller. But when we do instruction in all of our different colleges, we use our learning management system, which is Canvas, and have course materials in that and lots of links. And so that was really our first priority for accessibility, making sure where academic 4-credit classes were being delivered that we could make them completely accessible and compliant by day 1 of April 24th. Strategic Communications is a great big partner on campus. They manage all of the campus websites, and so they actually provide a lot of tools, and we use a tool called Site Improve, which is for websites. And again, it captures only about 60-70% of errors, but is good for starting kind of some of the remediation. And then we add manual checking on top of that as well. We look to our library professional associations early on, such as ACRL, Association for College and Research Libraries, the American Library Association, and just kind of local partners among the health sciences libraries to understand what people were doing and what was working, and we were able to use some tips from them. The really fun part, I think, as we get to doing more of doing this work and bringing some of the processes up to scale, is what we're able to do through the University of Nebraska Consortium of Libraries. So that is just 4 institutions in the state of Nebraska. We're still very small, but we all have interest in working together, and we have a little bit of money to spend, which is terrific. So we are working with them on thinking about what is the best way to share people, not just like hours here, hours there, but to share the knowledge of the people to get the work done. And then to also put the money toward the benefit of all of the universities that are in this consortium. And so right now we have a pool of money. We've identified items in our institutional repository, which is Digital Commons, and we are choosing to prioritize items that are journal-like in content. So our university publishes a few, 4 or 5, three completely open access journals, which Allison supports. And so we're looking at that content. We're also looking at all of our theses and dissertations and several other types of materials. And so I think all up there may be not quite 1,000 pages or so that we're looking to remediate. But we're going to use an automated tool. It's the University of Arizona, it's the Arizona tool. Yeah, shout it out if you can remind me what it is.
Alternative text generator?
Yep.
That's like the main one, but they have other.
Yeah.
Closed captioning too.
Say the Arizona tool with Adobe on top. And again, those technical things, there are people on my team that are really putting that together, not me. So that's really a great opportunity for us. Our Title II advisory group, I mentioned just kind of campus consultation. They've moved around a couple of suggestions for software, which has been really great. In our library, we're also negotiating or navigating the work of reviewing the VPATs, which is the vendor provided accessibility a template. Thank you so much. And so we have many items that are resources that are shared in our consortium. That's great because that team has already reviewed all of those items, but then we have more for our own library for the packages that we subscribe to directly and that we negotiate with publishers. We need to make sure that all of those are going to have the right ability to be compliant and for us to understand the landscape of what is not compliant. Because we know at some point in the future, we're going to have to provide instruction support to remediate things on demand. We just will not get to 100%. But our library also, in one of the earlier slides, you saw that we had a maybe health sciences museum. So we have our academic medical center, we have a research library for all of the academic processes and research, and then we have a history of medicine museum, which contains a bunch of material like exhibits and some audio recordings and a whole experience that you can walk through. But we also have special collections and archives, which have oral histories from people in the university and across the state, materials that are presented in different ways that are digitized, that are up online. And some of those materials are going to be triaged differently, so we have a team focusing on them. Instructional materials, I already mentioned. SpringShare content such as our web guides, but all of our forms and like everything that sits inside our lib guides spaces. And then the library and museum exhibits. So our website for our library is its own thing with all of those resources. Our website for our exhibits is another experience. And then some other resources that we have are coming right up. We also think about accessibility, right, and those things that are that are not on the web. We have anatomical models, for example, and those all come with a reading packet that someone can use. And that packet is in like tiny point, let's just say not even 11-point font. And so we have someone on our team who's a graphic designer, and they're actually creating new model guides that can be used, that can be accessible. And so that, thinking about all of our resources and what is the best way to address the things that are just beyond the web as we look forward to meeting the mandate, and also thinking about overall accessibility has really been a focus of the past several months. It's given us an opportunity as we have more textbook consultations. We have implemented the Leganto system for our course readings process, which allows us to link library materials inside of Canvas directly to courses for students. Super nice benefit for us to be able to push materials that way, but it's created some conversations where faculty believe that anything they link to their course that is owned by the library is going to be immediately accessible. So we've had an opportunity to educate folks that, no, this doesn't mean that, but we can help understand where your needs are and give you some advice on where you can go for accessible versions, and just encouraging good behavior. So this mandate has also afforded us some new conversations with faculty. We know that accessibility is part of the work that we do, and like our Florida colleagues mentioned, many institutions in the United States are far behind on providing accessible materials. And so this just gives us the real kick to do better and to think more comprehensively about how we serve our users. We think about also position responsibilities and apportionment. So all of our library staff right now, we have faculty, staff, and student workers. None of us have accessibility written into our work. And just as none of us have, provide good service and be kind to your colleagues, like maybe not exactly written into our job, accessibility may need to be more front and center. And so we have written that to a position that we're currently recruiting for, which is kind of in our systems librarian job. So they'll be working with software and our collection systems and online resources and such. And so we want them to have an explicitly defined role in supporting accessibility. We have some newer library values that we've adopted, and one of them is around commitment to access. And so this really, even though this was established several months ago, this helps support us knowing and recognizing where we're doing this work to support our users. So we ensure equitable access to authoritative health information, empowering all users to discover, utilize, and share knowledge. And that is more than just meeting with our folks, that's more than teaching, but it's our whole ecosystem of providing resources. And we're very proud. This is one of the 4 areas that we've been focusing on in the past year, and this really ties in closely with our accessibility work under this new mandate. Our resources are also linked together, and we're happy to have the opportunity to present with our colleagues at Florida, and also thinking on some of the conference themes and things that we've heard around change and readiness for technology. There's just so much here in this work that is really exciting now, and I think we all have had a journey. It looks a little different. So with that, I'll invite questions for any of us, and thank you so much. I don't know. Okay, Tom, yes? Here's your mic.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom from Vietnam, and in Vietnam I think the topic of accessibility is not gained a lot enough attention yet. And today I'm very happy because I think this presentation is very helpful for us because I have the chance to participate in a national panel to develop a platform for open educational resources of the country. So I also talk about the accessibility topic with the panel. However, when I talk, I still not very clear what we can do or what tools should we use to support the platform. And now I saw some links and some suggestions from your presentation. This is very helpful for us. One question is that I'm wondering if these tools are picky for the platform that we will use in the future to develop the open educational resources for the whole country. Because we will develop the platform ourselves, and I'm wondering, is it difficult to use those tools to access the accessibility of our platform or not? Thank you very much.
I would say that tool is fairly useful. I am not confident that it could be used in your development. I will say if you are developing a tool, you should look at the voluntary product accessibility templates that we discussed, because you would create that yourself for your project. And in doing so, it will require you to do an audit similar to what we did. So I would suggest starting with an automated tool, finding the best one if that's not it. There might be one that's not free that would be a better for you. Actually, we use Cite and Prove as well at UF, but we wanted to model the free one because open access, right? We're always trying to find the open tools, which actually now I'm suggesting you subscribe when that is against open. But so I don't know which tool would be the best, but I would suggest you do the automated and the manual audit. I wish I had a better answer, but thank you for your question and for your comments. Anyone else?
Thanks, y'all. I'm wondering, it's obvious that you're all very passionate about accessibility. How do you get that kind of buy-in among your colleagues in a campus that's so large? Or, for the folks from Nebraska, it doesn't even have to be that large of a campus. How do you get your colleagues to care about this and to understand that this is really important when sometimes the reaction could be, oh gosh, this just seems like, more work?
Do you want to go first?
That is the sentiment from a lot of colleagues. I've heard just one more thing that we have to do, and I think the way that we get people buy-in is by leading and demonstrating like this is important, talking about the actual value to our users, and just also that we have some room to grow and we need to do better. And I think from the United States perspective that that's just respecting our users. And I think respecting our learners too. And I think talking about respecting learners is something that might resonate with other people on our campus.
I'll add one more thing. Whenever we have these challenges thrown at us and we get through that sort of storming part, like, oh, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? We can also sort of sell it as it's your upskilling. I don't think that's a word, but you're improving your skills. And maybe at the time you're just like, I have to get through this project, but yet you're actually learning something through this. So I think that helps because when we looked at all the challenges, we've learned a lot, and so that's how we sort of sell that, I think.
I also wanted to mention, so something that comes out of disability studies is the concept of the curb cut effect. So curb cuts, you'll see them on sidewalks. They're basically, it levels the field of the sidewalk so that people using wheelchairs can use them, but it's additive. It helps people with strollers. It helps people on scooters and on bikes. So much like the physical aspect, there's also the digital aspect. So it doesn't just help users with disabilities, it helps everyone. It's very additive, and I feel like that's really exciting because we're just making things more discoverable and easier to use in general, and that's why accessibility is so important.
We also tried to get student voices involved, and so by interviewing students and asking them for their input and for their recommendations, then we're able to share that with faculty, and when they see how important and how vital this is for students, and also fellow faculty, like there's other faculty that have some accommodation needs. And like, I now need captions on every video. I like, you know, it's just something that it helps, as Daniela said, helps everyone. And so if we can also just bring awareness to the student voices, making sure that faculty know that it's important to the students, I think that helps them as well. And sadly, coming down to the fact that now we have a law, and so everybody has to do it now in the U.S., whether they have been on board or not.
We have time for one more.
Thank you very much for both the libraries to share with us very useful and important information to make our library inclusive for everyone. Yeah. So I think I'm from Vietnam, from Vietnamese German University. So in Vietnam library, so we like don't have much investment and care for like the services or the web accessibility for our user. But for like furniture facilities, so we repair for disabled users. However, for the website, like my library website, we had a statement about accessibility. However, we don't repair like infrastructure, software, or contents for that. Yeah, so, and I also learned a model from Ruhr in Bochum, Germany. So they repair very good for like disabled users in terms of the software, the website, the facility. Yeah, so I think, I don't know, you can share with us about like how can you rush with the project, like you do the survey from our user, how many percentage of disabled users, and how about the project, is it the requirement of the top leaders, or is it the initiative from the library, or you can share a little bit? Yeah. And I can share one case from my library and my university. Last year we had one blind student. He cannot read the materials, and the whole university struggled with one student, you know. So even from my library, I try my best to support the student, but he still has a lot of difficulties, and even he get his mother to come to stay at the university with him to support him. So I feel sad about that case, you know. So I think we don't care much about that. So thank you. Yeah. And you can share about like how like percentage of disabled user, or how you come with the project.
Yeah, so the project came from us. It wasn't a top-down thing. We decided to do it. I mean, it was influenced certainly by the ADA mandates and Title II laws, but this was something we're all interested in accessibility, passionate about it. And then in terms of the percentage, there are about 7,500 students at the University of Florida registered with the Disability Resource Center, and so if there's over 50,000 students and 7,500 have disabilities, that, you know, that's a percentage something. That's some amount.
And those are just the registered.
And those are just those who are registered, so there's certainly a lot more who are unregistered, so there's a high percentage of students at the UF with disabilities.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the day.